Being female still just doesn't equate with what most of us expect to see in leaders, including thought leaders like economists or economic journalists. What special anguish it is to live in a system that teaches you to reject elements of yourself, like a bear riding a tricycle. It just attracts natural attention. Bears don't generally ride tricycles, after all. Is that bear even qualified? I've been told I smile too much. I'm too nice. What special anguish it is to live in a system that teaches you to reject elements of yourself. How dispiriting, indeed, to regularly stand up at the microphone to ask your question knowing that even before you've drawn breath to speak, the vast majority of the audience have already quietly questioned your credentials to ask the question in the first place, not least of all yourself. Of course, the question, when it inevitably does arrive out your lips, is usually a complete zinger, polished by all the internal contortions you've done to make sure it's perfect and beyond reproach. Loading, although God forbid you do muck something up. Then you'll get emails from male readers not only informing you of the simple error, but also obliged to question what credentials you possess to be called a senior economics writer. Nearly 2 decades in the job, mate. I don't reply, but I do read them. And they accumulate. Slowly. Over time. Drip. 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 Recently, I also noticed how the impact of internalized gender bias not only leads you to reject elements of yourself, but how you start to reject the same perceived weaknesses when you see them in other women. So yes, when I get your exclamation point-laden email clad in pink tones inviting me to celebrate women at your corporate International Women's Day event, complete with goodie bags of eye masks and shopping vouchers at the door, it rankles. Guys, we are not drawing attention to that girly stuff. Loading, I did attend my first ever IWD event 2 years ago, under duress, more out of curiosity than enthusiasm, and wearing jeans and a pair of Vans trainers in silent protest. I've rejected probably hundreds more invitations, including one super fund who chose to brand their event in a particularly lurid pink. Ick. Super funds are the worst when it comes to inane boosterism for bridging the retirement gap. Why don't women have as much retirement savings as men? Because we still take more time out of the workforce than men to raise children, and when we do work we're paid nearly a quarter less. I don't think your breakfast is going to solve that. As a journalist, I have to also admit I am something of a magnet to powerful people. I seek them out. I try to ask them questions. I try to win their confidence to find out what is happening in the corridors of power. And when those corridors are filled with men, what use is there to me in hanging out with a bunch of women? Ouch! I cringed too, reading that. But it's the truth. When I get an invitation to a room full of women, I just don't see power, at least not in the traditional sense of people occupying the top echelons of the ruling hierarchy. And when I do speak to powerful women, I'm more likely to ask them about their personal lives. Bears riding tricycles are fascinating, right? I'm not immune to the curiosity of that. And if this all strikes you as something quite awful, I can only furiously agree. And vow to do better. The theme of this year's IWD is Break the Bias, and I reckon the first step is to simply recognize it and to call it out. Starting with me. So, this week, I'll be attending my second ever IWD event. Better yet, I'm speaking at it. Probably in Vans.